All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're joining us in the world. We may obviously still have a few more folks floating in as we go, but I'm going to go ahead and get kicked off. So welcome to Audience Alchemy. Today, we're going to take a peek behind the curtain, if you will, about doing virtual events that don't suck. So by way of introductions, my name is Bernie DeSantis. I'm the owner and CEO of Insignia Training Partners. We're a full service training broker or outsourcer based near Detroit, Michigan. Personally, I have over 2 decades of experience in training development, facilitation, and virtual training production. And what my company does is we help our clients to identify their training needs and then connect them with the right people, content, resources to help them design, develop, and deploy training programs, either for their employees or for client-facing events. Now, while we can and will always help organizations with any and all of their training needs, over the last couple of years, I've really started to focus in on solving one major issue, and that is helping businesses and individuals to create engaging virtual workshops, webinars, roundtables, and masterclasses, again, that don't suck. So very specifically, tend to work with speakers, trainers, coaches, consultants, authors, or subject matter experts who are openly admitting that they see virtual events as a big part of their business strategy, or they want it to be, and they simply don't know how to do it on their own, or maybe just want to get better at it. So today I'm joined by 2 people that I want to introduce briefly. So the first is my co-facilitator today, my friend and fellow Michigander, Julie Trombley. Julie is a certified CRM and automations badass, and she is going to talk to us today about landing pages and automations, which are super important if you don't want to do everything manually for your virtual event. Believe me, you don't want to do everything manually. The second is Joey Streets. He's going to be our producer and running the logistics of our meeting today. So if you do run into any technical challenges with Zoom, please feel free to reach out to Joey directly and he'll support you through any challenges. Now, we do intend for this to be an interactive and engaging event as much as possible. So please feel free to drop any comments or questions you have in the chat. We'll obviously do our best to weave them into the conversation or address them towards the end of the event. And be sure to participate in any of the activities that we do, which will include some polling questions. And then lastly, of course, be advised that our event is being recorded today. So you'll be able to go back to YouTube in a couple of days to view this recording if there's anything you want to go back to, or view any of the previous Audience Alchemy events that we've done. So without ado, let's get started. So for those of you who have attended a previous Audience Alchemy, you'll know that I covered, at least in part, how to create an engaging virtual event, specifically regarding how you show up virtually, right? How you show up on camera, how your audio sounds, what your attitude is, what your presence is in these type of events. But today, Julie and I are going to get a little bit more behind the scenes, the legwork, if you will, right? To set up and invite people to your event, because the top 3 challenges that people face doing virtual events in order are setting up the event and getting the right people to show up, right? Creating an engaging event while they're there that those people are going to lean into. And lastly, and probably most importantly, especially if you're doing these events as business development, the follow-up afterwards, right? So with that, I'm going to have Julie get us started talking a little bit about landing pages.
Yep, let me get everything set up here. Got a note because I think it was still trying to take Joey's sound or something, because it was like,
Yep.
Got a message I hadn't seen before.
You got
it. Okay. We good? Can you see everything? There we go.
Yep, good to go.
Awesome. Yeah, so like Bernie said, I'm just gonna kind of talk to you about automating your webinar without losing your damn mind. So, and how we're going to do that is with using a CRM. And if you're not familiar with what a CRM is, it's a customer relationship management system. So it's basically just a program that's going to interact with your customers, or in our case, with your webinar attendees. So it's kind of like your personal assistant for nurturing your relationships and improving your attendee experiences. Before we get too far though, I'd like to take a quick poll. How automated is your webinar process now? What automation, you dabble a little, you have some things, but it's a bit patchy. And, are you a low-key tech automation wizard? Let's see. What do we got here? Well, we're getting pretty split here. Oh, just a couple more seconds here to answer the poll. So we're split between two. We have what automation, and I've got a few things set up, but it's a bit patchy. So I mean, that's good. So hopefully we'll be able to help both audiences with this. So thank you for participating in that. So, as there's some like various automation usage in the group, let's do just a quick little overview. So we're going to use automations to handle the repetitive tasks of your webinar. So you can just focus on presenting and giving value to your attendees. Automations are going to save time by handling workflows like emails, registration, and reminders. Like, for example, when you signed up for this, you got confirmation email like right away, and how, to save the date on the calendar. So it's going to handle things like that. And it's going to help with a seamless client experience or attendee experience. So, registration process, reminder emails, and then your follow-up process, like sending out the replay links or any additional resources, and, even upselling to, services that you might be able to offer. So let's talk about some of the key components of automations, and don't feel like you have to write this all down. I am going to give you a little bit of a checklist at the end, so to make things a little bit easier for you. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to want to design a registration landing page. And the key elements that you're going to need with that are an attention grabbing headline. And, in this day and age of AI, you can use AI to help you create this headline. And I also use a headline analyzer to kind of make sure that it's a good headline to be used, and it's going to grab people's attention. A short description of the webinar benefits, who it's for, and what the purpose of this is. People, as they read this landing page, they're going to self-identify and know that, yep, this is for me. This is what I need to sign up for. The speaker images, bio, credentials, puts a face to a name, and, builds some trust and credibility. The registration form, we're going to want to make this clear and concise, and the less information you're going to ask for, the better. But we do at least want to ask for their first name and their email address, because you want to be able to personalize any messaging after, or, that's going out to them. If you start asking for too much more than that, people will tend to be like, yeah, I don't want to give all this information. So as little information as possible that you want to get from this. A strong call to action, save my spot, is there, anything that's going to make them make sure that they're going to be clicking on there and registering. And depending on the length of your landing page, you might want to have buttons throughout that take people to one central form where they're going to register. And use a thank you page to confirm the registrations. On this thank you page, we're going to have, a link to add it to the event to their calendar. I know I love to use that, because while you can give them the information, the date and the time, and here's the Zoom link, you want to make sure it's going to get on their calendar. So giving them that actual link that they can click on that puts it on their calendar is going to be so helpful. And give them the email address that they're going to be hearing from. So they're making sure to whitelist that email address. Just a few pro tips: optimize it for mobile. Make sure you are looking at this to make sure everything's flowing nicely, that the images are resizing correctly, and everything looks good on mobile. So many people are doing everything on mobile these days. Yeah. And if it's a paid event, send them to a separate order page to purchase, and then send them to your thank you page. So now that we've, got a place for people to register, I'm going to talk a little bit about sending some invitations. So these invitations are going to go to your full email list. And you're going to include like a compelling subject line, you know, don't miss exclusive training on whatever the topic is. A brief introduction to the webinar, benefits, and who it's for. Again, we want the reader to self-identify that, yep, this is the webinar I want to attend. A clear call to action that links them right to the registration page. You know, if you're offering limited seats, or if you have early bird registrations or anything like that, include urgency of things like that in your emails. A pro tip for this is to segment your audience for personalized outreach. So for example, what I did is not only did I send a set of emails to my email list, I also sent emails to people who attended our Audience Alchemy in the past. You know, so segment and then personalize those emails. You know, hey, great, you were with us last time. Even better, if you know who didn't attend, sorry you missed us last time. We'd love to have you join us live this time. You know, so make these as personalized as you can. But then also set goals in your automation. So once somebody has registered, they're taken off of that invitation automation. You know, you don't want somebody to keep getting invitations like, okay, I've already signed up. You know, that then gets annoying. So make sure you're setting some kind of goal that's taking people off of there. Is there a replay available? Encourage them to register even, you know, if they can't make it live. You know, then that way, you know, you get some more people into your automation, and you can share the replay link afterwards. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit in the follow-up of how that works too, of live versus those people who are just getting the replay. And then another way to get people to attend your webinar is to set up a LinkedIn event. I know a lot of you came through the LinkedIn event. So Bernie is gonna walk us through that process and what that looks like.
Thanks, Julie. And we got a couple of questions that popped into the chat while you were
Yep.
Talking, and I think that these are good questions to kind of address now. So Nina asked, what are your thoughts on work only emails for registration? I'll jump in on this one first. I'm of the opinion that I will take a personal or work email, because I want as many ways of connecting with that registrant as possible. So I'm going to walk you guys through something, a demo here on LinkedIn, how to set up your virtual event there. But yeah, you want as many pieces of information as you can. So I would never limit it to just a work email. Typically, that's the one you would prefer, but you want as many opportunities to reach out to your potential client as possible. Julie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I get that. I guess it's going to be whatever the person wants to use. I mean, I know a lot of us, I have 2 different emails that I use, and I use separate things, set them for separate things. If it's work related, if it's a webinar I'm signing up for, I'm going to use my Tackle Your To Do. If it's something personal that I don't want to get bombarded in that inbox, because that happens, I'll just give my personal email. And what you do have to look out for then is if it ends up being somebody that you're working with down the road and they've signed up then with something with the other email, you're going to want to go back in and kind of deduplicate your contact list at some point. And that's a good practice even just to get into on a regular basis anyways, is going in and making sure you don't have duplicates of somebody with the work email, somebody with the personal email. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Glenn asked thoughts on including a video on the thank you page.
It doesn't hurt. I mean, no, we did not have one, but it doesn't hurt to have one and thank them and give them a little bit more details, a little bit more inside scoop as to what they're going to get. I have seen it both ways of people using it and not using it. They've already registered. I mean, honestly, if you'd want to put a video, I don't almost put it on the registration page. That kind of gives them more of an invitation as to why they should be signing up. So, but yeah, I would say both if you wanted to, but probably more the registration page.
Yeah. And video content is king right now on all the socials, right? So if you really want to try to engage with the person who's visiting that landing page or that registration page, right, get them to register, that's where I tend to agree with Julie. I would probably put the video there. So John, you asked, wouldn't personal email be better? So if they change jobs, you still have a good address to reach them? Yes, absolutely. That is the value of a personal email address. but in most cases, they are probably going to register with their business address, especially if your webinar is related to business purposes. But again, I would rather have both and be able to reach them on multiple channels than just one or the other. But any contact information that you get ultimately is an opportunity to be able to connect that with them. And then Josh asked, what automated email system do you use, Julie?
I am using Go High Level.
Go High Level. Yeah, I use currently my CRM is Pipedrive, but I'm working on implementing MailChimp on the back end. So that's what I'll be using. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how we invite people to our events, right? So you see a lot of people that will strictly stick to one channel, and I don't really recommend that, right? Like Julie being an email and automations person, she's going to have a little bit more proclivity, as an example, to sending out email invites. Me, on the other hand, I don't have a really well-functioning system right now between CRM and email, so I rely more on LinkedIn. I would recommend that as you start down this path, if you haven't yet, that you leverage as many channels as possible, right? So I'm going to walk you guys through how to set up an event on LinkedIn. So just like the one that you guys clicked on, most of you clicked on to join today, I'm going to show you how to set that up. So let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. All right. So most of you guys saw this page, right? This is where you went on LinkedIn and clicked, yes, I'm going to attend the event. So obviously we've got a title in there. It tells who's delivering the event. I have a business page on LinkedIn. And so I will always put my events on my business page. And there's this very specific reason for that. You can, of course, still do it from just your individual personal page. But the value of doing it from your business page is that when people register, you can download a report afterwards that gives you the contact information that has been put into LinkedIn for that individual, right? So just so that you can see it, right? This is our event today. If I go to manage, I can download registration info. I'll get it sooner or later. There it goes. And then it pops up a CSV file that has all of that information in there. Now, to your point, John, most people, when they register for LinkedIn, they register on LinkedIn using a personal email address, because if they leave their employer or they no longer have the business, they still have that personal access to their LinkedIn. So that is going to give you access to their personal information. Now, not everybody uses a landing page. I highly recommend that you do, but if you don't, you can use a simple Zoom registration link in there. And oftentimes when people sign up and have to put their email into something, they are going to use their work email. Okay, it's just how it works. So by using an email automation as well as the business page on LinkedIn, you have oftentimes access to multiple contact information. So with that, if you're working from a business page, it'll just be on the lower left side, right? You'll see a little line here that says events, right? And that shows, in my case, all of the events that I have scheduled in LinkedIn currently. In the top left, underneath the title, you have create. So if you click create, it gives you a list of different options of things that you can create for your business page. Second one down is create an event. So it will then pop up this little window. Now, at the top, it allows you to put in a cover image, a graphic. Now, I typically just use Insignia's logo as my graphic because I am not visually creative in that way. Now, some folks are really good with Canva, and if you are, I definitely recommend using a more robust graphic, okay? But you have the ability to put that in there, and there are some limitations, right? 480 pixels, 16:9 is the recommended format, so you do have to adhere to those, but definitely recommend having some type of visual for your event. Next, you have the event type, right? Obviously, if we're doing webinars and workshops, it's going to be online. However, you do have the ability to set up in-person events through LinkedIn as well. Okay, so online event. The next one is the event format. And this one gets people a little bit. If you are doing a LinkedIn Live, you would select LinkedIn Live, right? And you just use LinkedIn, the platform itself, and it's really more of a webinar, a one-way lecture, right? You get a little bit of chat, but not a whole lot of engagement. The way that I typically recommend doing it is through an external event link, right? And that allows you to use Zoom or Teams or any one of the other platforms that are out there to do your virtual event. Okay. So I'm going to select external event link. Then you're going to put in whatever your title is, title of your event. And you can adjust your time zone if necessary. Then you're going to select your dates, right? Your start and end date and time. And then here where it says external event link, because you selected that earlier, that's where you'll drop your Zoom link or your landing page link, right? People will register for your event, but they will then have to click on that link to get access to the webinar itself, okay? Now, if you want to actually access that contact information that I referenced from the report a moment ago, if you're on your business page, again, it's only available on business page, you have to click use a LinkedIn registration form. And then it requires you to put in a privacy policy. So I do happen to have one on my website that I can reference. So I just grab that, that URL, pop it in there, and now it allows me to extract that contact information. You want to have you want to have a compelling description, right? What people can expect by coming to your event. You are limited to 5,000 characters, so you want to be fairly clear and concise with what you're trying to deliver, but you want to have a compelling description. And then lastly, you want to add in any speakers, right? So any speaker that is within your network, you can add. And so I'll add Julie as an example. And now if I were done, I would click next, and that would then create the event. The last piece is once the event is created in LinkedIn, it will then allow you to post about your event. And these pieces, these next few pieces are really, really important because you can't just build it and expect people to show up. You have to actually invite people, right? So you have to post. You should be creating videos. You should be doing direct messages, and then you should be inviting directly. So I'm going to pause for a moment. Joey, if you wouldn't mind launching my first poll, please.
Coming right up.
So I'm just curious, how confident are you in your ability to set up a virtual event leveraging Zoom and LinkedIn? Yeah, it's not rocket science, guys. It's not brain surgery, nor is it rocket surgery, right? It's actually really, really simple ultimately to do, but there are a lot of steps in doing all of the things. This in and of itself right here is probably the easiest part of the things that you have to do. The hard part ultimately is in that follow-up, right? All of your messaging. Current estimates from what I'm hearing, it's about 13 to 18 touch points to get into a conversation, a sales conversation with your prospect, right? So an event is one, but all of those messages, those emails, those posts, all of the things that you do, those are the additional touch points. And you have to get them in there so you can build that know, like, and trust. You want them to get familiar with you before, during, as well as after your event. So last piece that I want to show you guys is how you actually invite people on LinkedIn. Once your event is set up, you go to share and you click invite. And that is going to pop up this secondary window. As you can see, I've invited a lot of people. I actually invited close to 3,000 people to the event today. Of those 3,000 people that I invited, we had 94 registrations. Okay, so it's not a super significant conversion rate, but that conversion rate actually is not bad by comparison to industry average, right? Anything above a 2% from just invitation to registration is pretty good. Now, show rates are a different story. Typically, industry average, about a 20% show rate from registration to event is actually pretty good. Anything above and beyond that is fantastic. And it only gets better the more opportunities you have, or excuse me, it only gets better the more that you make contact with your potential attendees. So again, I've invited a ton of people on here, so I can't actually right now show you the, actually, yes, I can. Hold on one second. Let me do this. Go to a separate one. This is my event for next month, which I haven't invited anybody yet to. So it pops up a little radio button. And then you can manually go through and select individually the people that you want. Now, if you want to do it in a little bit more wholesale fashion, you can go by location, filter by location. Let's say I'll start with Michigan. So it will then filter and show me everyone in my network that is from Michigan. And it gives me this select all option, can select them all and then invite them all wholesale. Okay. Now there's two schools of thought. One is you want to be really strategic and intentional with who you invite to your event. Again, ideally you want the right people to show up. So you probably should go through, take the time to hunt and peck and search out the right people to show up. But if your product or service is a little bit more, I don't want to use the word generic, but general facing, right? You can probably blanket invite and get a pretty good return. To be perfectly honest with you, for this event, I did a blanket invite because most of the people in my network either are doing virtual events or they are delivering virtual training programs. So most of them would find value in what I'm going through with you guys today. Okay. But again, you want to be as intentional as you can to get the right people to show up. All right. And Joey, go ahead and launch polling question number 2. Fact or crap? You can invite up to 1,000 connections on LinkedIn per week to your event. A few more seconds. All right, we got 75% participation. So let's go ahead and wrap it up, Joey. So 2/3 of you said that that is fact, and you are correct. Using the method that I just showed you, you can invite up to 1,000 people per week to your event. I typically recommend that you start marketing your event, you create the event and start inviting to it at least 30 days in advance. So if you have about 4 weeks, you can potentially send about 4,000 invites out to your event. It is, again, restricted to your network. So if you don't have 4,000, obviously you can't send 4,000, but there is a workaround for that. Get some friends to help you. Reach out to a couple of folks that have larger networks and ask them to invite on your behalf, right? So I invited about 3,000 people to this, and I'm pretty sure that Julie invited a couple of thousand to this as well, right? Guys, your event is not going to be for everyone all the time, every time that you run it, but you want to invite those people over and over and over again because you never know when the right time is going to be for them, right? All of you here today was the right time for you based on the content that we were going to be sharing, right? All right, so I'm going to pause for a moment. We are at halftime. Any questions about what I just shared?
There's quite a few questions in the chat, Bernie. I've gotten to a couple of them.
All right, thank you. Glenn uses go high level. Versus email service, active campaign. John, we're not going to go super in depth on CRMs versus email service, although Julie, maybe you want to touch on that briefly, if at all. I personally, because I use Pipedrive and it's got a really bad email functionality to it, that's why I'm going to be moving to MailChimp. But go high level, from what I understand, has a pretty robust email capability. So it has a lot to do with what platforms you're already working with. But to answer the question specifically, we're not going to go super deep on that. Scott, yes, my privacy policy is from a stock form. And you can absolutely copy mine if you'd like. You can even Google free privacy policy. And I think there's a site called freeprivacypolicy.com that will tweak it for you. Like setting up landing pages, I'm doing this with a partner or two. What I lack is depth on SEO enabling. Yeah, Jim, obviously the SEO piece is important, especially if you are going as far as running ads and reaching out to people on like Facebook as an example, right? But the SEO piece of it is important. You want to have those keywords in there as much as possible. But it's going to be different per event, right? Based on what it is that you're particularly doing. Having a producer, I noticed Joey. Yes. So John, that is actually one of the main services that Insignia provides, particularly since COVID. Everybody obviously had to go virtual. Not everybody did it well, and still aren't doing it well in some cases. So if you are interested in talking about leveraging a producer, just grab some time with me, and we can work through that. Josh asked, what polling system are we using? So the polling that we are launching within this Zoom is just the basic Zoom functionality. There are other platforms that you can also integrate. There are things like Poll Everywhere, Stream Alive is another one. There's gamification apps called like Kahoot is one of them. You can kind of turn it into a game show if you want. You can use Miro boards. There are a lot of different applications that you can integrate into Zoom. However, oftentimes people don't even know the tool that they already have. So my first recommendation is get to know the base platform, Zoom or Teams, whichever one you're using, really well, and then start to integrate some of the other apps.
Copy.
Yep. Thanks, Joey. You did answer that. John, that is just connections, not followers. Very good question. Start promoting the event. I did answer that one, Crystal. So about 30 to 45 days, ideally, right? You want to be able to maximize those invitations as much as possible. Perfect. Okay. I think I'm all caught up. Any other questions before I have Julie pick back up? All right, Julie, back to you. Go.
Good. So,
Yep.
all right. So yeah, well, and I know there were some questions about how you do things and whatever. So before I talk about, the post-registration automations, this is the perfect time to bring this up. That, Bernie and I are offering a strategy call, a 1-hour strategy session. Yeah, say that one time slow. So it's going to give you a chance to get feedback on your current webinar process. And if you don't have one, we could kind of guide you in the right direction. Identify gaps, determine, whether or not we have another package that's called the Webinar Success Package is the right move for you. Kind of, again, we'll talk about we'll assess your current setup if you have one, where automation can save you and where it's costing you, and give you some recommendations based on your business goals and your comfort level of using tech. And we're not going to be pushing anyway, but we'll let you know about more about our, webinar success package, and see if this is the right thing for you. So a strategy call is $197, and you're going to book through my calendar, and either Bernie or Joey will be joining us. And if all the stars align, you might get all three of us. Maybe. So yeah, if you want to book a strategy call, Joey's going to drop the link in the chat. And again, this isn't a sales call. This is just a personalized, actual call to help you make sense of what you're doing and where you might be able to do things a little bit differently. So yeah, we'll go on with the rest of my presentation then. So you've done your invitations, you've got people registering through the landing page. So now we're going to talk about the post-registration series. And this is just to keep registrants engaged and showing up live. So the sequence is going to be, immediately after the registration, you're going to get a thank you email confirming that they've registered, and provide more information about the webinar, the date, the time, adding the link for adding it to their calendar. A week before, reinforce why they should attend. If you have anything that, they might need prep materials, send that out a week before. A day before, we're going to send a reminder, with instructions on how to join, with the Zoom link. We all get busy. So, I could get the reminder yesterday or the day before, whatever. And then like an hour later, or an hour before, it's gonna be like, don't forget you have this webinar. Oh yeah. And if your system will let you do it, 10 minutes before, send one more reminder. We're going live, click here to join. Some tips here, just use consistent tone and branding. Test your emails and the links to make sure everything works. And if you have a longer time frame on what you're on what you're promoting your webinar, you might want to send some additional messages in between of, just to keep people hyped up and excited about attending. So if you're doing more like a 2-month or 6 weeks, notification, or words, Julie, 6 weeks to 2 months or longer, that you're marketing this webinar, then, send some more emails out in between other than just, those few reminder ones. And now I have another question for you before we tackle, post event automations. Joey's going to throw up another poll. So what best describes how you are currently handling your webinar follow-up? Now, I forget it and feel guilty. I send one email and hope for the best. I copy and paste from the last webinar. It's all automated, baby. At 8 out of 12. Let's see.
A lot of I forget and then feel guilty, Julie.
Yeah, I see that. Send one email and hope for the best. And copy and paste from the last webinar, that's not an awful thing. That's a great, strategy to have. Why reinvent the wheel? Because you already kind of got it there. So yep, we'll end the poll. And so yeah, we kind of have a lot of the I forget and feel guilty. So let's talk about that then. Let's see what we can how we can help you get a little bit more automated than that. So our after the webinar engagement series, obviously this is to keep up with the engagement, book calls, selling your widget, whatever. This is where we're gonna just make sure people know that we appreciated them being there, and how can we support them. So what this kind of looks like, we're going to send about 5 to 6 emails with a gap of about 2 to 3 days in between. So our first email is going to be like the day after and thanking them for showing up, sharing the replay links and recapping any of the key points that we feel like we wanted to make sure they got. 2 days later, we're going to send in additional resources, or maybe answer some common questions that were asked. And if you have a fast action bonus, you want to remind them of that. Another couple of days, we're going to spotlight something within the webinar, that something that was covered, and then have a call to action, whether it's, book a call or buy my widget or whatever. Another couple days later, how could working with you help them with their pain points that they're dealing with? And then another couple of days, provide a clear call to action to work with you, like join a program, explore your offerings, book a call, whatever that looks like for you. And then one last message, maybe even a couple more days later, that just kind of wraps up the experience, is letting them know that they are now on your email list, and then giving them a way to whitelist your email. So they're making sure to get your information still. Some pro tips on this is that you're going to want to personalize the follow-up based on their behavior. So did they show up live? Thank them for being here. So yes, you will all get that message. Thanks for being here. And if there's anything you want to revisit, here's the link to the replay. For the people who registered and didn't show up live, they will get a different email. Sorry we missed you, but here's a link to the replay. So that first email is going to be the same. It's going to be a different message for each of those audiences. And then from there, people can get the same email, but make that, especially that first one afterwards, just a separate one for those who showed up live and those who are signed up but didn't show up. So some tips for success. We're going to start with a clear plan. You want to outline the entire attendee journey before even setting up your automations, and test everything: landing pages, email links, webinar integrations. And I always say, add yourself as an attendee when you're setting things up, because sometimes in the setup, you think it's going to go the right way and you get an email and it's got the wrong time, the wrong link, whatever. You know what? We're human, shit happens, and you will catch it that way when you go get that email and you've seen something I'm speaking yes from experience. So it happens. Then you're going to want to monitor your analytics, track your registrations, the attendance and engagement rates, and see what you can do different for future webinars. And there are so many CRMs out there that can help you with your automation needs. If you want to have a conversation, I'm happy to have a chat with you to see, if there's one that works better for you than another. And leverage tools like Zapier. So to connect your CRM, or if you are just using an email service platform that you're connecting things with Zoom and your CRM, just anything you can to help streamline this whole process. So as I promised, I'll drop a link into the automation checklist in the chat, and Joey will drop that in for me here. So automation doesn't just save time, it's going to set you up for webinar success. And in fact, webinars with automated follow-ups see an 80% higher engagement than those who don't use a follow-up. So those you one and done, or you forget to follow up, it's worth doing the follow-up, and automating it makes it even that much better. So again, you're feeling like, okay, this all sounds great, but where do I even start? That's exactly what the strategy call is for. Again, it's just $197, it's an hour, and it's about helping you to look at your current setup, your goals, and to figure out, can you do this on your own? Which, yeah, you probably can. I mean, we've had this discussion before, Bernie and Joey and I, like this is something you can do on your own. Do you want to do it on your own? Maybe. Let's have this strategy call. We could possibly help you with that, but we can also see if maybe the webinar success package is more like something that you're going to need. Again, the links in the chat for the strategy session. And if the idea of doing all this alone feels a bit overwhelming, we can help with that too with our webinar success package. And, Bernie, you want to talk a little bit more about what's involved with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, guys, a lot of the biggest challenges that I mentioned earlier, right? The three big pieces are ultimately the pieces that Julie and I are able to help with, from setting up the LinkedIn, setting up the landing pages, setting up the email automations, helping you to strategize engagement throughout the course of your event, so people are leaning in and not saying, why did I just waste an hour of my effing time? Then managing the logistics, right? Obviously, you guys have seen Joey launch the polls. This is a fairly straightforward, very simple event that we're doing today. But if you want to make your event more robust, you may consider doing things like breakout rooms and annotations and mural boards and all of the things to keep people engaged. And quite frankly, as a solo facilitator, it's tough to manage all of the logistics on your own and remain engaging with your audience, right? So having that producer support would be part of the package as well. And then lastly, and honestly, the piece that's missed most often is the follow-up, right? You got to make sure that you are following up with the people that attended your event or even registered for your event. Because let's be honest, when I send out the invites through LinkedIn, it's just a little notification that comes across the top of your screen or on your phone, and you click accept, and then it's not top of mind anymore. But the follow-up, pre-event, and then post-event keeps you top of mind afterwards, right? So that is effectively the package, tip to tail, turnkey. The only thing that you guys really would have to do if you decided to move forward with that package is show up for the event and deliver your content, which obviously for some is really, really appealing. Before we move on, Julie, we did have a couple of questions in the chat. Actually, and you got a kudos in the chat. Maria said that you helped her with her She Means Biz Summit, and it was amazing. And you helped her vision to come true. So thank you for that, Maria. And then Glenn asked the question, do you provide early bird content for events that are high ticket and promoted 2 to 3 months ahead of the event? Things like early bird content being preview the webinar, one-on-one chats with the speaker. So it really depends, honestly, Glenn, because in some cases, the offer that you make in your event may in fact be the one-on-one chat, right? It may be that kind of soft piece. So it depends on ultimately what the purpose of your webinar is and what it is that you're selling. I see a lot of people do lead magnets, right? like Julie dropped a checklist into the chat, right? Those are things that you can start to potentially send out before the event as well to start building and bridging that know, like, and trust. Make sense? All right. I think that gets us caught up. And then Crystal, yes, you can. All right. So let's move on to the next slide, I think.
Well, actually, we have one thing to say that
Oh, yeah.
normally the cost for our webinar success package is $2,000. But if you act before Friday or by Friday, end of day, we're giving $500 off of that. And Joey should have a link to the webinar success package that he'll drop in the chat. And if you happen to book a strategy call with us and then later decide that you want to sign up for the webinar success package, we take that $197 off of the webinar success package. That's if you buy the fast acting, or if you wait and do it down the road later. So it's what we like to do is, if you want to get in on this, buy it now. And we would ideally like you to schedule your webinar within the next 3 months. And so, yeah, we would just, like to thank you for spending your time with us today. I mean, if you want, grab a screenshot that has everything you would need on it. Also, a lot of the links have been shared in the chat. And, whether you're diving into the replay, booking a call, or jumping right into the success package, we're excited to support you. But keep your eye on your inbox. And don't forget to whitelist both of our emails, because while everything has right now been coming through my emails, you will be added to Bernie's email list as well. So you want to make sure you're getting anything from him. And we would love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. And I believe Joey's dropping all of our contact stuff in the chat as well. And that is all I have. And I see some other things I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, we got about 11 minutes left. So obviously we'll open up to any Q&A anyone wants to have in the meantime. But otherwise, if you've had enough of us, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining. Anna, go ahead. What's your question?
Okay, super. That was awesome. And it was really good to kind of get little tidbits, shortcuts, things like that. I've done quite a few webinars now, but you know what? There's always room for improvement, right? The question that I have, because it's happened so many times now, I set up a landing page. I was using Kit for my email automation. And people, and I'll set it up as a LinkedIn event. So they'll sign up. I have the link to go to the Kit landing page, and they don't. and then I'm like, but you didn't get the link. And now I've got some people here and I've got some people there. And I'm like, this is driving me mental. Is there something am I missing something there, or have I just not done something, or what am I doing wrong?
I don't know that you're missing anything necessarily, Anna. I would probably say in that case, and I'll also admit that that's something Julie and I struggle with sometimes as well, right?
Okay.
Because not everybody is going to click through. In fact, a few of you didn't click through until today, right? Just as you're getting ready to join. But the key ultimately is in the messaging, right? Having a nice follow-up process. So the moment they register on LinkedIn, they're starting to get some emails. There should be some DMs, right? I'm pretty sure everybody got a DM from me within the last 24 hours with the event, right? So we want to make sure that we're communicating that registration on LinkedIn was only the first step. We want, right? We need to take that next step, which is full registration, get the webinar link to join.
Okay, so there is a gap, right? Like it's not that I gave them the wrong link or something. Nope. There just is a natural gap there.
There is a natural gap.
Because I think it's easy that we see that notification. We're like, yeah, I'm going to go. And I hit accept. And then they, but then they don't, because they're just getting that as a notification. If they don't click through to the whole event, they're not going to see that link that they need to register.
Right.
Exactly. And so, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the webinar starts, I'm like, oh crap, not everybody has the link yet. So now I'm like, there's got to be an easier way. So yeah, I think you're right though, Bernie, is I haven't done enough in the runway lead up to the thing to make sure I'm getting
and a thank you email when they register on LinkedIn, right? So if you're doing it through your business page, you download that contact information. load it into
Yeah.
your CRM, or just create an email thanking them
Yeah.
for registering. Hey, here's the information that you need, our event date, our time. Here's the link to join, right? They have everything. The other
Oh.
piece Julie mentioned earlier, Zapier. I've had a
Yeah.
few clients that have gone through and done a zap from the registration on LinkedIn to Zoom directly.
Oh.
So when they
Oh.
register on LinkedIn, then it zaps over to Zoom. They registered then in Zoom, and then Zoom sends out the reminders and the links. Now, I'm
Okay.
more a fan of the registration page,
Yeah,
but
I am
that is a
too.
way to
but-
do it.
Okay, something to consider. Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. That was great.
So I imagine you could do the same with your CRM though, right? So you can zap
Yeah.
from LinkedIn directly to your CRM.
Okay.
What other questions do you guys have?
I will go. So Bernie, you got to hear Rick and I talk yesterday.
Yep.
And so you think that something like this, a webinar, would be great for us to start doing and educating?
I do. I actually think, Crystal, that there's a couple of opportunities for you guys. I mentioned there's various formats of virtual events, right? This is more of a quote unquote masterclass style where we're going to be teaching you something, but there's not really an application here, right? A workshop would be something where you can actually learn something and apply it in the event. Then you have things like a webinar, which is typically more of a one-way communication, right? It's a lecture. There's less verbal engagement throughout. And then you have things like roundtables, which are highly interactive. Everyone is getting really engaged in the conversation. And part of the key is determining which format you want is who you're trying to talk to and what results that you are trying to achieve, right? So as an example, webinars, workshops, master classes are good for folks when you are trying to reach a DIY type audience, right? So folks who are attending here probably are thinking about doing a webinar, something like that on their own. So, right, it's more of a DIY audience. Now, if your audience is more executive level, CEOs, right, the vice presidents of an organization, they are less likely to show up to a webinar, a workshop, a masterclass. They are more likely to show up to a roundtable, though, because they get to rub elbows with their peers, they get to exchange ideas. It's a little bit more of a collaborative type thing than, hey, you're going to talk at me for an hour. So
Okay.
it really kind of depends on the audience that you want to reach. But just based on what I already know a little bit about your business, I would say that you actually might want to do both, right? Because part of what you
Okay.
guys do already is educate people on notes, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But part of your audience, the investors that you're looking for, I would equate them more to the executive C-suite type audience, and they are more likely to engage in a roundtable. But
Okay.
as my daddy said, there's an ass for every seat.
I like that. So would you guys be able to help set up for both of those and what that would look like? Okay. And
Absolutely.
then does that package include one webinar that you set up or multiple? How does that
Yeah, so
work?
the offer that we presented today is for one event, right? One webinar,
Okay.
one masterclass. However, if you're looking at doing multiple events, obviously you and I can have a deeper conversation and talk about what that
Okay.
looks.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I never thought about the roundtable idea, which I think's genius.
Yeah, it's a really good format. I've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, doing a webinar but calling it a roundtable, and if you get people to show up and it's not the event that they're expecting, it's going to turn them off immediately. So you want to make sure to deliver what the people are expecting when they show up.
Sure. Okay.
Grab a little time. All right, what other questions do you guys have? We got about 4 minutes left.
I just want to say I've learned a lot this
go ahead.
and I appreciate it. And I have a lot more discipline to employ when I set up webinars rather than the fire and forget current approach that I've been using. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Josh. Thanks for showing up today. Appreciate it.
I'll send you another note too, Bernie, about some instructional design potential stuff coming up.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
I did
Here.
have one more question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say if John or Gary had any questions, because they're been kind of quiet, but Crystal, go ahead if you have something.
I was just gonna ask for, I don't know if this applies to the other business owners, but for our business, you recommend how many of these per month? Quarter? I mean, like what would that look like? Consistency, I'm assuming that you would want to continue this with.
Yeah, I'll start by saying I never recommend doing a one and done, right? A webinar, particularly where you're going to be facilitating for people's learning, it's probably going to take you a time or two to get your delivery down, right? So you're not likely to get significant results from doing just one. The other side of that is you also don't want to overdo your webinars and workshops and become Charlie Brown's teacher, just a whole lot of noise. So I would typically say between once a month and once per quarter is kind of the sweet spot, but that's kind of on a case per case basis. Now, there is a way that you can do different events and different audiences and then do multiple events per month if that's, you know, the volume that you want to do, right? You could do a round table on the 15th of the month, and then you can do a workshop or masterclass on the last day of the month. And then you're doing 2 events a month if you wanted to go at that level, right? Typically what I say is about once per month or once per quarter.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
All right, Julie, any other closing thoughts?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. Thank you for the questions. Crystal, I'll connect with you on a DM through LinkedIn. We'll get some time scheduled. Cool. All right,
Sounds
guys,
great.
enjoy the rest
Thank
of the
you
day.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.